This is why it becomes so important to understand the novelty and the viability of neuroscience is being leveraged as weapons. We then have the use of nanoparticulate agents, aerosolizable nanomaterials that can be breathed in and disrupt blood flow or neurological network activity, that can be used as an in-close weapon, or perhaps that can be used as a more broad weapon of disruption and or destruction. We also have the capability to utilize nanomaterials to get electrodes into a head and to create a vast array of viable sensors and transmitters. This is DARPA's N-cubed program, next generation non-invasive neuromodulation, utilizing these techniques and technologies to create vast arrays of implantable electrodes that need not be put into the brain surgically, that are then able to read from the brain and write into the brain remotely in real time.
Advances in artificial intelligence are leading to medical breakthroughs once thought impossible, including devices that can actually read minds and alter our brains to help treat conditions like anxiety, Alzheimer's.
But that technology raises privacy concerns. That's why Colorado passed a first-of-its-kind law aimed at ensuring our private thoughts remain private.
Are earpods that can pick up brainwave activity and tell whether or not a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering. Okay, well, you might think, fine, but even if we can tell whether a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering, you can't tell what they're paying attention to. You would be wrong.
Who has access to this technology?
Karen, everyone, believe it or not. You can buy devices on the internet right now that can, to varying degrees, decode your brain waves. And the technology being developed by the likes of Elon Musk, Apple, Meta, and OpenAI can change, enhance, and control your thoughts, emotions, even your memories. It's the dawn of a new era filled with promise and peril. If the at-home devices are impressive, those being used in the lab are even more so. Our brainwaves are like encrypted signals, and using artificial intelligence, researchers have cracked the code, identifying frequencies for specific words to turn thought to text.
That I just think it, and AI knows what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Because of the pattern of my brainwave.
Yes.
But with the benefits come risks.
It is some of the most sensitive data that you could possibly share with anyone.
Data insurance companies could use to discriminate, law enforcement to interrogate, and advertisers to manipulate. Government, too, could get into our heads and potentially alter our thoughts, emotions, and memories as the technology advances.
Nobody wants to live in a world where some of these misuses or abuses exist.
While medical research facilities are subject to privacy laws, private companies that are amassing large caches of brain data are not. And based on a study by the Neural Rights Foundation, 2/3 of them are already sharing or selling the data with third parties. The vast majority of them also don't disclose where the data is stored, how long they keep it, who has access to it, and what happens if there's a security breach. Which is why Pazowski, medical director of the foundation, led the passage of a first-in-the-nation law in Colorado that includes biological or brain data in the State Privacy Act, similar to fingerprints, if the data is being used to identify people.
This is a first step, but we still have a long way to go.
And with companies and countries racing to access, analyze, and alter our brains, Pazowski says privacy protections should be a no-brainer.
It's everything that we are. It's everything about our thoughts, our emotions, our memories, our intentions.
And Sean, we're also wondering, can any of these devices actually control a person's thoughts?
They have been used to control the thoughts of mice in a lab.
All right, so much to take in.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you for that report.
What do you think? Is it a future you're ready for? You may be surprised to learn that it's a future that has already arrived. Everything in that video that you just saw is based on technology that is already here today. Artificial intelligence has enabled advances in decoding brain activity in ways that we never before thought possible. Sensors that can pick up your brainwave activity, earbuds, headphones, tiny tattoos that you can wear behind your ear. We can pick up emotional states like, are you happy or sad or angry? We can pick up and decode faces that you're seeing in your mind. Simple shapes, numbers, your PIN number to your bank account. It's not just your brain activity here that we can pick up. We can also pick up your brain activity in different places, like as your neurons fire from your brain down your arm and send signals to your hand to tell you how to type, move. All of that can be decoded through electromyography, and that's what you're seeing here is a device now in the form of a simple wearable watch that can pick up that activity. And in one of the pivotal acquisitions of the field, Meta acquired this company, Control Labs, in 2019, because major tech companies are investing in helping to make these devices universally applicable as the way in which we interact with the rest of our technology. What if everywhere has ubiquitous monitoring? In fact, during the pandemic, what we found was that 80% of companies admitted that they use at least some forms of so-called bossware technology to monitor the productivity of their employees. Whether it's a white-collar employee monitoring what's on their screen, or in any other context, surveillance is part of our everyday lives. Surveillance for productivity is part of what has become the norm in the workplace. And maybe with good reason. 9 out of 10 employees waste time during the workday. They focus on other things. There may be good reasons why we want to be able to find better ways to monitor whether somebody is paying attention or they're doing something different. The newest way to monitor attention is through a device like this one. These are ear pods that are launching later this year. These ear pods, much like the video you watched earlier, are ear pods that can pick up brainwave activity and tell whether or not a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering. Okay, well, you might think, fine, but even if we can tell whether a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering, you can't tell what they're paying attention to. You would be wrong. It turns out that you can not only tell whether a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering, but you can discriminate between the kinds of things that they're paying attention to. Whether they're doing something like central tasks, like programming, peripheral tasks, like writing documentation, or unrelated tasks, like surfing social media or online browsing. When you combine brainwave activity together with other forms of software and surveillance technology, the power becomes quite precise. So what do we do with this? What do we do with technology that enables us to monitor brainwave activity for attention? Do we embrace it? Do we resist it? If you've heard of Havana syndrome, Havana syndrome is a belief that people have suffered from. The leading theory is that it's targeted microwave activity at brains to disrupt brainwave activity. There's no proof of it yet.
I had a hearing this week in Homeland Security, and this hasn't even become very mainstream yet, but it was about different foreign adversaries using direct energy weapons against U.S. citizens that completely incapacitate citizens of the United States. You guys might have heard of it, called Havana syndrome. And then we went down to the SCIF and we got a classified briefing from some of the people on the panel, and it was one of the most. I'm a former Navy SEAL, so I've traveled around the world and hunted bad guys for a long time, but I can tell you this, when I went down to that SCIF, it was one of the most terrifying briefs that I've ever been a part of, okay? This is how brazen our enemies are becoming because of how foolish, corrupt, incompetent, and I would actually say wicked we have become.
But there's at least a couple dozen cases where there isn't a good explanation for why the individual suffered from disruption of mental abilities. And there's certainly a lot of investment in trying to figure out whether you could target the brain remotely. It's much more difficult to figure out how you could read the brain remotely.
Let's get to that, because I think it's one of the most important and crucial questions about how this develops. And by the way, raise your hands. I'm just going to ask this question and then we'll move to the audience. You talked at the end. At the beginning, you said we won't be able to read complex thoughts. It seems as though we can understand emotions. There's some way you can recreate some images inside your head.
Already, gamers have figured out, for example, while a person is wearing a headset, how to prime a person through their brainwave activity to be able to decode their PIN number and their home address. So you don't have to have your full complex thought decoded to reveal your thoughts, right? It gets at what we think thought is.
And how do you decode somebody's PIN number? You flash a series of numbers and see how their brain reacts to them?
So you have recognition memory signals that are preconscious and subconscious, and this is part of why it's been used, for example, by governments to interrogate criminals. Do you recognize this potential co-conspirator? Do you recognize this murder weapon? Those preconscious signals, like what we call the P300 wave or the N400 wave, these are before you even consciously process information, so you could prime it with a number and then see if a person recognizes it. And you can do it without them realizing that that's what you're doing.
So will all of our passwords be cracked first by this or quantum computing? Hard to tell. All right.
There's a whole set of things around hacking and bad actors. So, for example, if you have some headset and it communicates over Bluetooth, Bluetooth is just not that secure. Most of these things are kind of read and not write, but there are technologies like TMS that do try to write signals to the brain, and I'm sure people are going to try to do that for various reasons. Imagine those systems being hacked. So, we really want to think this through. We want to get a jump on it. I think that's Nita's fundamental point. I completely agree with it. No matter how long the timescales are on some of the specifics, we need to get on it.
I do fall on the side of this is moving faster rather than slower. I'm working with one of the world's leading experts on neurotech, Rafael Yuste, who says that things that he thought would take 5 years are now taking 1 or 2. So I think we're moving faster, and also because $1 billion a year is being spent just by China alone through its military on researching neurotech. And I'm quite confident that they're working on, even though I have no personal knowledge, decoding human thoughts, potentially using these devices for torture and other kinds of things.
Use this artificial intelligence voice in the head to break down the ego and control an individual.
Ultimately, yes. You can't plug your eardrums. You can't stop the sound. A lot of the targets are tricked into believing evil aliens have abducted their brains. Demons.
They're tricked?
Yes.
How are they tricked?
They're told.
By who?
By the voices. A lot of these school shootings, I think that you hear about on the news. They hear voices.
We've learned that Cruz told the BSO detective that he heard a demon in his head.
And police now say he also heard voices.
Who heard voices in his head.
The scripts, they're called. And they're meant to confuse, the very derogatory. That's just typical breakdown. And why would you want to break down the ego of that person? To rebuild it. So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates.
Police have released video made by the man who opened fire at Florida State University.
In Project Soulcatch, I referred to a Myron May, right? As a psychobomb. They didn't care who the target was. They were just trying to make him explode and do something bad. He was a lawyer trained there. His reasoning why he shot up the school was he needed news publicity to make sure people understood this was real. And he left the video testimony.
As sick as this may sound, I've even had stalkers follow me into church.
He believed government stalkers were harassing him and using a direct energy weapon to hurt him.
But he gave out 7 packages in the mail, and the FBI intercepted them all.
What were in these packages?
Just information. Just information.
May then opened fire at an FSU library, wounding 3 people. He was killed in a shootout with police.
If these people do explode and do something bad like this, there's absolutely no way to prove that there has been any sort of manipulation to the brain. In this guy's case, he talked about it. I mean, obviously he talked,
but it was covered up.
By the way they write the article, he sounds like a crazy person.
Yeah. Guys, if your assessments here are correct, these are very covert weapons, aren't they?
That's correct. There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things.
And you guys also said that these attacks are happening right here in this city. Is that correct?
I mean, there have been some that have gone public with respect to Washington, D.C.
I think it was Mr. Grozev said you spoke to a Russian agent who said that they believe that Americans are using these same weapons on them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Might that have something to do with part of the CIA's motive to cover up the existence of this tech and these weapons?
That is a very logical possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, for his round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. Mr. Grozov, I want to follow up a little bit on the interactions you've had with Russian intelligence about these AHIs. And Mr. Zaid, I want to ask, and this is a hypothetical, but I'm trying to understand why our government would try to block information sharing or conceal information that they have. And one thing that comes to mind is whether there's an operational risk to revealing any of the details of their investigation. Is that something that you have come across in any of your work?
There's a lot of reasons why the information might not be publicly released. And I do think that's something we could address more in a classified environment to explain that. But there are understandable reasons why the U.S. government has not revealed much of what it knows.
There's some long-term things that needs to be done in terms of new acts. But in the short term, we need to do things like implement the original Havana Act. Yeah. DOD still hasn't done it.
So this is not out of the realm of these very nefarious people, like in the CIA and these other types of secret societies and institutions of our government. We're now finding out the use of AI can be used against people. We've already heard from the World Economic Forum that they have the ability with AI to be able to read people's thoughts by putting in a little Bluetooth in someone's ear, that they can actually see what someone is actually thinking about as they're working. And they're going to sell it to us, Allison, as this is going to be good for employment because employers will know whether or not their employees are daydreaming or thinking about other things other than the job. But what is it saying? It is saying that they now possess the ability to read our thoughts and now weaponize us with acoustical types of things that can be sent to us that throws us off balance or makes us feel crazy. This is all, where is it going? All about controlling the narrative, controlling people.
Absolutely. That is most certainly what it is all about, as has been made rather clear over the past couple years especially. But yeah, I think this could obviously take an extremely dangerous turn here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this led to targeting and testing and even like torturing of innocent civilians, which brings me to my next thought, which is the inevitable threat of artificial intelligence mixing into all this, right? Mix AI into the use of neuroweaponry and you get an entirely new uncharted territory.
And the whole idea is that we would have these biological sensors in our bodies, and then they could read our thoughts, know our emotions, know whether we're hungry or not, or anything like that. And so now it's a warfare of information. They will have everything on you. They will know we're coming and going. And so this kind of warfare, this kind of being able to target individuals, and think about this. There is no way to detect. There's no entry point. There's no exit point like a bullet would have. Yeah. They could just target somebody and they're saying, yeah, he went crazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. We and then turn a kill switch on somebody and, and them lose a thread. Now.